And what's up? Welcome in. It is GC Live Wednesday show. I'm Wes. He is Chris Clark. Never a dull moment in Gamecock Nation. We thought it might be a slow signing day. Was kind of a slow signing day as far as any recruiting news goes on the South Carolina end, which was to be expected, but ended up being actually a very busy day in the South Carolina news world. Shane Beamer speaking about an hour ago. Sterling Lucas may actually still be talking. We're going on live here at 3 o'clock. The first introduction for him. The news breaks earlier today that Connor Shaw is leaving for a outside business opportunity, non-college athletics opportunity. And then shortly after that, the news breaks that Erik Kimrey, South Carolina's tight ends coach, will be leaving for another opportunity as well that he will be announcing, I would imagine, at some point fairly soon. So crazy day. We're going to get to all of that. But first, got to tell you about our buddy Clint Hammond. He is the presenting sponsor right here on GC Live. ClintHammond.com, as you see above our heads, every single show that we do. The NMLS number, 71597. Email address, chammond@mortgagenetwork.com. If you're in the market for a new home or you just want to see what options you have to refinance, give Clint a shout or just go on over to ClintHammond.com. Chris, a weird National Signing Day, man. This is not what signing day used to be. It used to be waking up at like 6 a.m. and getting ready to roll 100 stories or doing 8 hours of radio or what have you. Completely different now. We didn't even have a single signing day story on the front page this morning until Beamer spoke this afternoon. But then we start getting some rumblings of something actually we had been tracking for a few days now on Connor Shaw. And then we get some strong rumblings that Kimrey is going to be leaving as well. So it ended up being a strange day, man.
It was. And look, I mean, we knew that the signing day was going to be different anyway. We knew we wouldn't be, like you said, 6 a.m. or 5 a.m., 10 pots of coffee, live updates, all those types of things. We knew that would happen. But what we didn't know was that the timing of these two things would kind of coincide with that day. And it just worked out to where Beamer had a press conference to talk a little bit about some of the transfers that were already on campus. That, of course, a big reason, Wes, why there were not more guys to track today in terms of signing is because, 6 of the 7 transfers, minus Austin Stogner, are all on campus already. So they can talk about those guys, introduce Sterling Lucas, and obviously once this news broke, we knew he'd be fielding a lot of questions about the departures of Shaw and Kimrey. So didn't really foresee that timing. Very, very interesting moves. I think 2 very different moves. I've seen just from some of the conversations on the Insiders Forum, here in the chat, social media, of course, there's some, I guess, jumping to some conclusions, kind of blanket statement type of things. I think there's 2 different situations here, right? Two different reasons, 2 different paths in terms of where these guys are going, and the timing just worked out like it did. But very, very interesting signing day. And I haven't really thought of it as signing day unless people just happen to ask about it, Wes.
We had a couple of people, Chris, ask on the Insiders Forum, hey, where's some signing day content? And I said, there is none. There's really not a whole lot to say. And I did think about, I thought about just putting a story on the front page that said National Signing Day. Everybody has already signed. Just so
blank.
Just so you got there and you were like, what's going on? You would just know there'd be a reminder. South Carolina, 2 scholarships remaining. I know this hasn't been a fun day for y'all, for Gamecock fans. They get the news today that Malik Heath is headed to Ole Miss. And, Chris, that was the feedback that had been provided by Heath and his camp after the South Carolina official visit was very, very positive that it went very well. But the other side of that coin was you sort of had, there was these rumors. Some of the Ole Miss reporters seem to be very confident. When stuff like that happens, you never know which way it's going to sort of end up going. I thought there'd be a little bit longer before we saw a decision. Heath had communicated that he was going to take some other visits, but he goes ahead and locks in with Ole Miss today. A Mississippi kid. It's not surprising by any means. Like, it's not a shocking result, but this was a guy that South Carolina felt at least some level of belief that they were in it with him, and that they had a good story to tell as far as being able to come in and play it at wide receiver. But let's move that forward a bit. I think if you're South Carolina, you're looking at those two spots post spring, that jolt. We talked about this yesterday, that the portal will get again. I think receiver will remain a likely priority for South Carolina, even though we couldn't tell you which guys that will be yet.
Yeah, and that when you look at just some flexibility of additional spots in this class, that's one that you can point to. You do bring in Antoine Wells, which, Wes, did you know his nickname was Juice? Did you have that on your radar?
Unaware.
Okay. Shane Beamer revealing that today. So a little newsworthy. But you get Antoine Wells. Obviously, you're bringing in, Landon Sampson in this class. We know South Carolina, with one of those spots, would like to target another receiver. They dug around on some that were previously in the portal. Heath is a guy, obviously, that they went after and hosted on an official visit. So it makes a lot of sense. But just with the timing of everything, Wes, classes having started around the country in January, spring ball, getting very, very close in a lot of places. Next month for South Carolina, obviously, starts spring ball. Things will settle down a little bit on the portal front with spots filling up, the classes starting. And now we'll see more movement after the spring. So South Carolina can, hold those spots, see what happens after spring. But you would certainly expect that they're going to be digging around more in the portal and monitoring heavily for somebody at the receiver position.
Certainly, man. So some walk-ons announced today as well. Some guys that appear to. Sometimes with walk-ons, it's a guy that you're like, wow, I remember that name from way back. I think, we talked about it yesterday. Not one of the guys that's been announced yet, but when you're adding talents like DJ Black from Chapman to your walk-on class, when you're adding an incoming preferred walk-on whose nickname is Turbo in Dante Miller. By the way, Juice and Turbo, like, there are some great nicknames in this class of guys coming in. But I think that matters. It helps at the very least. It helps the competition within your program, in that if your walk-ons are better, that naturally is going to push your scholarship guys a bit as well.
No doubt. And I think, like, you look at some of the walk-ons South Carolina has brought in under Shane Beamer, some guys that were here in the past. Erik Rice is a guy that got, not similar to DJ Black this year, but he was a really good high school player that you could point to and say, that guy's good enough to go play on scholarship somewhere smaller, right? But you get him as a PWO, as an in-state kid from right down the road. He's a guy that physically, with his traits, wouldn't be a surprise if he's helping out at some point as a junior, actually on the field. Special teams, maybe some receiver. We've seen, Trey Adkins is a guy that eventually earned a scholarship at South Carolina. Same deal. Peyton Mangrum, Wes, is one that, caught the special teams fake punt touchdown against Tennessee, was a really, really prolific high school wide receiver. There were a few little question marks that colleges had, right? Well, maybe he's not a 4-4 guy, but he was really prolific, and he's gotten himself into position to where he's helping this team. He's pushing some guys in practice, scout team practice. He's also playing special teams. I think a guy like DJ Black, a good example of being resourceful. You don't want to have your walk-on program just be a bunch of bodies. It's something that you need to devote time and devote attention to. And the better that program is, the better they can be. I remember East Carolina, when Ruffin McNeil was there and Lincoln Riley was their OC, they had an excellent walk-on program. They paid a lot of attention to it, and they had guys that would come in as walk-ons and end up being starters and be really good players. And so it appears that that's, an area that Shane Beamer is kind of honed in on and wants to do a really good job on.
Yeah, definitely, man. So sticking with Chapman guys named DJ, how about the announcement today of DJ Twitty joining the program, transferring in from East Tennessee State. He's got a final year of eligibility remaining. I remember watching that kid in high school and being like, this guy is very underrated. Great high school football player. returns home. And I'm trying to see, does he really only have 1 year left? Is this the super senior year, or does he technically have 2? I can't tell off the top of my head, but yeah, just again, adding talent without using scholarships. Always a good thing. Kid was very, very good at the high school level. Here's one that caught me off guard, Chris. Jack Luckhurst, 6'2", 180, transfer place kicker from Arizona State. Says on the bio that USC sent out that he appeared in 2 games in 2020, connected on a field goal from 49 yards, was 9 for 9 on extra points. So a guy that comes in as a walk-on from California, but has some experience, kicking in college, kicking at the Power 5 level, even though it's limited experience, still some experience. That there is life ahead without Parker White for South Carolina.
I don't believe you. Nope.
He's going to find a way to come back.
Yeah, Parker will be back for a 7th year somehow. I really won't believe it until somebody else is out there kicking the first field goal or extra point. But no, seriously, I mean, this reminds me of a conversation that we had during one of the media days with Pete Limbo. I think this was back maybe the pre-spring media day, Wes, inside the indoor, and just talking to Pete Limbo about his kind of philosophy on how do you find kickers, punters, specialists. Sometimes you see schools, go way more aggressive in trying to scholarship a guy. Sometimes you see schools that really don't want to spend a scholarship on a guy. And a lot of times what you find is there's somewhere in between. And I think that's kind of where Limbo is of, if you find a guy that you think is worth a scholarship right off the bat, meaning out of high school or as a transfer, presumably, he needs to be really, really good. You need to be sure on that, because if not, your scholarship spots are very limited for specialists like kickers or punters. And if you have 2-3 guys on scholarship, you got to remember you got all these other spots on your team too, where the numbers are, a lot higher and you need more guys. So his ideal scenario, Wes, was to bring in a walk-on at each spot and really develop those guys. And hey, that's exactly what happened with Parker White. You also got to keep in mind that South Carolina's already got a kicker and a punter on scholarship. Kai Kroger, Mitch Jeter. Kroger certainly, I think, proved his worth as a punter and a quarterback. And then you also have Mitch Jeter, who presumably is going to have a leg up, pun intended, on the job this year. Yeah, that was pretty brutal. But 2 scholarship guys. And so that's why you're not looking in a class right now and saying, hey, let's go try to find a guy to scholarship. But if you can be resourceful again and going and finding walk-on guys that you can develop, that's, going to help you.
Yeah. And opportunities for those guys to go on scholarship down the road if they do end up winning a starting position. Daniel Lester will be coming in the summer as well as a high school walk-on kicker, preferred walk-on kicker. So with kickers, it's really just about competition, and it's about finding which guy can do it in a game. Like so much of it is mental that it's hard to evaluate that and give a guy a scholarship. A lot of the guys in high school aren't kicking off the ground either. You can use a tee. You can use, like, the holder can put the ball on a tee. So it's just different kicking at that level versus kicking in college. So I think you just got to bring in as many talented kids as possible. Even Parker White was not like expected to be the starter earlier in his career. And then he just took the job and ran with it. And, even that first year when his numbers looked like he struggled, he was very accurate from less than 50. It was when they were asking him to venture out and kick from further than that he got himself in trouble. So, yeah, we'll see. But it'll be weird to be talking about a kicking competition this year because it's been a long time since that's even been a part of the conversation in an offseason at South Carolina. Let's see. I was trying to see if there was anybody else transfer class-wise we needed to mention. A couple of other guys. Colin Bryant, transfer. He was a walk-on at Alabama, has 4 years of eligibility left. They announced Jackson Hall, who is the Belton Honeypath offensive lineman that's visited South Carolina pretty much every week this season, I think. The former Dorman quarterback that spent a year or two maybe at North Greenville, Hayden Lee. He's already on campus and was announced today as well. And then Noah Abrams, a DB from Powder Springs, Georgia, Hillgrove High School, gets announced today. But for the most part, it was really the guy that everybody had already everybody was already aware of. With guys coming in that had already been announced that were in the transfer class. Before we get any further, Chris, we do got to tell everybody, and I'm springing this on you completely, but now you'll like it. How excited were you to see the announcement from Home Field Apparel this week? And dude, the buzz on Twitter from Gamecock fans, like our people were pumped. Like they were that nobody does a better job of hyping up releases than Home Field Apparel. But
no doubt,
I think the Gamecocks have a shot at surpassing Florida, which my Home Field folks, shout out Whitney, she says Florida has had the best launch of all time. So
in terms of sales, like
sales.
Okay.
So you've been challenged.
That sounds like a challenge to me.
You have been challenged. You'll be getting a free shirt in the mail soon, Chris.
I can't wait. I was gonna say I was gonna drop the free shirt. I was worried about making the people jealous, but hey, they're gonna have awesome deals for Gamecock fans. It's gonna be super cool. They do an awesome job with branding, and their product's amazing. So I can't wait for it. So
it's kind of been a long time coming. Obviously, as far as South Carolina fans have been waiting, hoping they get it now officially. Launch day, Chris, is February 5th. Home Field is an Indianapolis-based company, officially licensed apparel. This is Big News Saturday, Season 3, and South Carolina gets to kick that off this Saturday. And for those who are not familiar, everything they do is they're like vintage-looking shirts, right? You know, the logos involve thoughtful designs involving something from South Carolina's history. So they will release the actual designs here really, really soon. And then we're going to have a little deal for everybody as well. So be ready. We'll have a special promotional code. Everybody will get a little bit of a discount on their Home Field purchase from Gamecock Central. But let's go break that record, huh?
That'd be awesome, dude. And I was gonna say, I'm gonna spring this one on you, okay? Since you did that to me. Since you mentioned Florida and trying to break their record, okay?
Yeah, I'm listening here.
The Gamecock fans, obviously, with Home Field, homefieldapparel.com, if you want to get a sense of, some of the other stuff they've done. They got some sweet Gonzaga shirts on the front page right now, which are awesome. Can't wait to see what they come up with on the South Carolina end. Gator fans obviously did a really great job with their launch at Home Field. Tell you a couple other things Gator fans have done really well at. And so, yes, this is a challenge. 2 other things. Garnet Trust, okay? The Gator Collective down in Florida, they're killing it. They're doing a great job with NIL opportunities, connections through the Gator Collective for Florida student athletes. Garnet Trust, it's here. It's available. GarnetTrust.com. Right now, I got to say, Wes, lots of people supporting Garnet Trust. It's been awesome. It's growing, right? It launched after Gator Collective. Florida's ahead. They're ahead a good bit. So another challenge, go check out GarnetTrust.com. And the third challenge, I'm not done.
Is this about Florida as well?
This is about Florida as well.
This is a Beat Florida Day, basically.
It's Beat Florida Day. Our guys on the Florida Gator on 3 site, Corey Bender, Nick De La Torre, they're about to add Wes actually to their team there on Gators Online on 3. They are killing it as well. They do an awesome job raking in subscribers. right now they're beating Gamecock Central in subscribers. Now, they launched before us, right, when we moved to the new network. But Gamecock fans, if you haven't joined GamecockCentral.com, or if you haven't moved over since GamecockCentral.com moved to On3, go check us out. You can jump in $1, Wes, for the entire first year, and you get a free Founders Club hat by joining GamecockCentral.com. If you were on our site when we were on Rivals, if you want to still subscribe, you do need to get a new subscription on On3. If you've never tried us, it's $1. Come check us out. So 3 challenges, 3 ways you can beat Florida. South Carolina beat them on the field last year. You can beat them by doing cool stuff.
Let's go 3 for 3 in beating Florida. Just beat them into submission, much like the South Carolina football team did. Force another coaching change, maybe. I don't know. All right, let's close this final bit out, man. Matthew says Chris is pitching like a boss. That was pretty good, Chris. That was nice, man. Everybody naturally, and you already talked about this a bit. The Connor Shaw, Erik Kimrey departures today on the same day. Everybody naturally has been a little upset, and because we wondered, like things have been pretty good in Gamecock Nation for, I would say, ever since the night that Rattler and Stogner announced.
Good point.
It's been all gravy. Then you win the bowl game. I don't know if anybody even, the bowl game, everybody sort of went into with very low expectations. A lot of fans did. They get surprised by, boom, big win over North Carolina, beat your rival from right across the border. It's been all good. This is just like what we talked about yesterday within games, within seasons. It's never going to always be up. You're going to have setbacks. You're going to have ups. You're going to have downs. But I get the frustration a bit from fans when it's two of your guys, right? It's 2 of your former quarterbacks moving on to other opportunities. Like, I can get a little bit of the greater, like, wait a second, what's happening? Why are they leaving? It's on the same day. That's natural. But something you've pointed out on the Insiders Forum is I do think once it's completely out there, like where Kimrey is going, it will kind of connect the dots. And some of the rumors, I think it's already kind of rumored out there, where I think he's going to end up. But it does make sense. And, I think for, and I don't want to speak for Erik Kimrey, but I think getting to go to South Carolina was obviously a dream for him. He talked about that a ton when he got the job. But also running a high school football program, there are a few better. Certainly in South Carolina State history, literally by the numbers, there are a few better. So I don't know, man. You kind of just wonder if an opportunity that was too good to pass up came along, if maybe he realized that's where his passion truly is, because it is a different game, college level versus high school level. I'm speculating there a little bit, but I think we should all keep that in mind as well.
And it's in a different game, Wes, now than even when Shane Beamer was hired, because of like NIL and everything. You talk to college coaches really at any level, especially ones that are on that Power 5 level where NIL has really made a huge difference. And there's been a marked shift in the past, I don't know, few months. I mean, you hear Shane Beamer talk about the difference of, what they heard on the NIL front in the summer to what they heard in December. I mean, it's pretty amazing. So, but that's kind of just a side point with Kimrey. I think a lot of people, nice. We made it, Wes. By the way, no, never mind. I was going to say we made it a whole show yesterday without an insult, but somebody did talk about the red face yesterday.
Oh, I knew that was coming yesterday.
But it was only like once. It was very impressive. Very impressive. So thank you, Saint, for your for weighing in. We really appreciate that.
I do talk a lot. I talk
a ton. I just talked for like 10 minutes straight a minute ago.
I talk a lot, but I also bring us in to the top of the show. I have to do the top of the show read.
Yeah.
Like there's,
it's all good.
Chris has a mute button. If I ever just get too far out, he can just mute me.
I can control it. Yep. So with Kimrey, a lot of people are looking at it very black and white. They're kind of putting Kimrey in the box. And the reason, by the way, Wes, that people are so, I guess, emotional about this is it's not just two coaches leaving. It's Connor Shaw and it's Erik Kimrey. And it's at the same time, these guys are Gamecocks. Like they played for Carolina. They're beloved, right? So leaving at the same time and all this stuff, it makes an impact on people where they start wondering about it because these are situations where these guys love Carolina, right? So you naturally wonder, well, why is it? Kimrey is not a college coach in that typical sense. Most college coaches, it would not make sense for them to go from what you think is their dream job, and it is for Kimrey, back to coaching high school. But he's not a typical college coach. This is another thing I said on the Insiders Forum today. His goal isn't to go be a position coach at Georgia or to be the offensive coordinator at Tennessee or to keep climbing the ladder. I mean, if the Green Bay Packers offered for some reason Erik Kimrey the head coaching job, sight unseen, he'd probably take it. I would hope so. The point is he wasn't trying to leave. He wasn't wanting to leave South Carolina. This opportunity, and again, it will make more sense when people see the connections and what's happening. It was an opportunity that was good. It was a family thing that made a lot of sense, and it is a different situation than even Connor Shaw. And there are a lot of things that I think went into both of those choices.
Definitely, man. Anything else from Beamer's press conference? And did you get to listen to most of it? I was off and on, to be honest with you. I know you had some stuff going on as well. But Beamer basically made it a point to say, hey, both guys are leaving in, I think fantastic was the word he said. It's still a fantastic relationship between the program, between Beamer and Kimrey, between Beamer and Shaw. And both guys, I can tell you this with 100% accuracy, both guys are still going to be massive Gamecock fans. Like it's not like they're running off and pissed off and will never be around again. I imagine they'll both be in the stands quite a bit on Saturdays if they happen to be able to be in town during that time. So I think you look and it's not. Beamer made it a point to say that. He also said, Chris, that he doesn't foresee any more like on-field staff changes in the future before the spring either. Now he even acknowledged, hey, that anything can happen in this game. Sometimes this stuff catches you off guard, but that he doesn't expect anything coming as far as that goes. I'm trying to see. I'm reading, by the way, Colin Taylor has a great recap of all this. I'm trying to see what we missed.
By the way, Wes, and I do not know the identity of said coaches, but it did kind of stick out talking about no more staff turnover that he's aware of. But he did say it had come across his desk that one assistant turned down an ACC, SEC, and Big 12 job, and another separate one, had turned down an ACC job. So pretty interesting stuff there. And that happens a lot, every, off season. There's a ton of coaching shifts, obviously, but there's also a bunch that are proposed that do not end up happening.
Certainly, man. So let's see what else we got. Beamer seems he's still a little bit slightly salty that Sterling Lucas turned him down.
Little bit. Wouldn't even name the school we went to.
Yeah, there's a little. Now, I think it's a running joke at this point because Lucas had a great comeback, by the way, when he was asked, is Beamer still salty? He said, well, he hired me, so I guess he's over it. But I got a feeling that maybe is going to continue to come up in discussions. And Lucas even said, this was a nice little recruiting pitch, I feel like. Well, if they had the facilities then that they do now, I'd have probably gone to South Carolina. But it was interesting. I don't know if you caught this part, Chris. He said that Jasper Brinkley was returning to that South Carolina team. And he said he was sitting there. He was coming in as a middle linebacker. And he was looking at the depth chart. And there's Jasper sitting there. And he's like, man, I'm not going to play right off the bat here. So it kind of makes sense. Really, though, he mentioned relationships. We talked about this before. When basically there's 3 different linebackers coaches during the time you're being recruited, because South Carolina made a coaching change. Then they bring in, so that was one guy. The guy was there before. Then they bring in Van Gorder. Then he visits Sterling Lucas's high school on a recruiting visit. Then he's out the back door, moves on to Notre Dame.
The
and then you have Ellis. Do what?
The Falcons.
Okay.
One. Yep.
And then he dropped. You have obviously Ellis Johnson gets hired, and he's coaching linebackers and your defense coordinator as well. So you have 3 different guys all in that little quick period of time. And it was a late developing recruitment for Sterling Lucas as well. He was one of those guys that blew up at the Shrine Bowl. So, yeah, I could imagine if I'm a high school kid and all that's happening and I feel comfortable at NC State, maybe it makes more sense.
Yeah, totally. And, it's just been really interesting to kind of see his path. I remember, I'll be honest, Wes, when we first heard of him being on the radar, I'd kind of forgotten that he was in the coaching world, because a lot of times I think it's almost easier to keep up with guys in the college level. We cover college more. We hear a lot more about coaching movement within college. And this is a guy that he spent some time at NC State in the weight room as a grad assistant, but for several years now, he's been in the NFL. So I just kind of tossed him aside in my mind, not really tracking him as a coach, but he's risen through the coaching ranks, has a lot of people from what we've heard, Wes, that think really highly of him. And I think, from a coaching standpoint, our understanding is that during the interview process, he really, really impressed people, around South Carolina with his knowledge. And the thought was with some of the guys he's worked with hands-on at the NFL level in terms of edge rushers that he's going to be, really, really good in that department.
And it has worked with some guys at the NFL level that are very, very well respected. It seems like that was important to Beamer too, that it be a guy, or that was a nice bonus, I should say, that he spent some time in the NFL. He's been around some really high quality coaches. He's been around some really well-known high quality players, especially with Baltimore. And even from what I've read, Chris, that as much as the Jaguars struggled this year overall as a team, their defensive line, which is, where he was helping out with, actually played pretty well from everything I've been told. I actually had a Jaguars fan who's a Gamecock fan who said, look, the defensive line was not the problem for those guys at all. So we'll see. It was kind of funny also, the recruiting training day for Lucas, and how he was on, he said he was on the private jet one day because he was with Beamer. And the next day he was driving in his car for about 6 hours.
That's right. Yeah. And going back to the D-line, man, the D-line was about the only thing that wasn't the problem for the Jaguars this year. Wild stuff. So, I mean, here's the thing for me with Sterling Lucas, and he's been on the road some, but he hasn't been out long enough and hasn't really been in Columbia in general long enough for us to get a sense of, how are things going and what's brewing kind of on the recruiting front, the relationship front. I know in the next couple of weeks, Wes, we'll definitely be digging into that on GamecockCentral.com and hope to have some notes on that front. Obviously, here's the interesting thing. South Carolina brought in a couple guys in this class from the high school ranks in Brian Thomas and Donovan Westmoreland that can be edge guys. But you got to remember, they also missed out. They wanted to take a couple more. Jayshon Barham, James Pierce missed on both those guys before, during the early signing period. Barham flipping to Maryland, Pierce signing early with Tennessee. And so it's going to be vital next class, especially with some of the guys. You lose Jordan Strong, Birch will be an upperclassman. It's going to be absolutely vital, that they go out and sign some difference makers in this next class.
Yeah, the two Jordans are getting up there in college age. And Dude, I think getting Terrell Dawkins is incredibly underrated by everyone at this point.
Oh
Like, as
yeah.
far as what that means to South Carolina, like there was even some chatter on our board when it first happened of, well, why do we need another defensive end? And you really dive into it, he's going to, I think, play a pretty big role this year, even. But you fast forward to next year, if Dawkins can do anything as far as getting settled in this season, he goes into the next offseason feeling like he's a definite starter, in my opinion. And it was kind of interesting to hear Beamer repeat some of the things we've been told by others, and that was just how much of a better fit he will be at South Carolina in a four-man front, which is what he was in his initial season at NC State when he was on the field and rushing the passer. Then they go to this three-man front where he's more of like a five technique, like an inside guy or four technique type guy. And now he's going to be out there a little bit further on the edge, which I think fits. He's listed. I was just looking at it, man. 6'4", 235. So he's probably a guy you want to put a little bit more weight on, right, in the nutrition program. But still, I think, especially this year, he can be a little bit more of that maybe pass rush specialist while you're putting some weight on him.
Yeah, for sure. And definitely a better fit in a four-man front. This isn't a guy that you're going to go ask to go out and, two gap guys. I mean, he's someone you need to attack and let him go attack. And that's certainly, I mean, from what we know of Clayton White's scheme, that's what they like to go do. He wants to be, as particularly on third downs, be aggressive in some of the things that they do up front. And you're right, definitely a key acquisition. I think the fact that South Carolina was able to get him and coupled with the fact that they did miss on a couple of those talented edge rush targets really made his acquisition more important. But still, even with that, nonetheless, in the 2023 class, they have got to go out and get a difference maker or two on the edge. So we don't know who that'll be yet. We know some of the targets, but it's going to be critical for them to go and do that.
Yeah, and we'll see. One of the guys asked any news on the welcome home. Still no news on that. That's not, especially as early it is for the class of 2023. I guess we can pretty much confirm completely that it is a 2023 guy at this point, since this signing day is over with. But it could be a while. At one point, Chris, I was told it could be as early as early this month. I checked on that. From what I was told recently, it could be quite a while as far as when that's going to be announced. And I think you're going to see that maybe more and more in some occasions where the welcome home goes out and then we find out weeks or months later when the guy puts it out publicly and we have to say, hey, this was that one way back on January. I don't even know what it was at this point. I've already forgotten what day it was.
Yeah.
It was a couple Saturdays ago. Maybe the 11th. That sounds right.
Sure. I do not know, for the record. I mean, and you remember when all the transfers were committing as welcome homes and we're like, this one today was number 3. Number 6 has not been announced. Number 1 will tomorrow. I mean, it's just crazy. You need a diagram. So yeah, we probably are going to see that more. Recruiting has changed a lot, Wes, from when we first started covering of. What was your first full-time year? Was it 2009 too, as well?
So 2008, 2009,
8,
I think.
9, that's when you and I both kind of broke into it. And man, it's way different now. It's way different. And so the early commit, and this has been going on for a few years now, right? I mean, the early commit type of thing, and then continue to look around. But the silent commit while you still look around thing, that's going to be there too.
Zachary Barker says it was the 27th or 22nd. So yeah, 22nd. Sorry, y'all. But so not that long ago. But anyway, what else we got, man? There wasn't a whole lot more. Beamer basically confirmed what we already knew because the kid had announced it with Randricus Davis. He obviously wasn't with the team this past season anyway, but that he has officially given up football. And Beamer said, let's see, there were, how do you say it? Quote, a couple of other situations that are fluid that he does not want to address right now. Nothing he, quote, really wants to get into right now out of respect for those guys. But I mean, let's be honest. Y'all can probably even like we won't speculate and throw names out there, but it's been very apparent for some time that there will be some upperclassmen who will move along and either continue their careers elsewhere or possibly just kind of move on from football if they've graduated and stuff like that. So that'll be down the road, probably after spring practice, but it's just a natural part of growing a program. Benjamin wants to know any ideas on who might be interested in a tight ends job. Chris, I think probably far too early to even start throwing names out there.
Yeah, I mean, Beamer did mention during his press conference, and he's mentioned this on when there have been other open spots in the past, that he's gotten a lot of texts and a lot of calls expressing interest in the position. But we aren't at that point, Wes, where we can say, here are 2 or 3 guys that are definitely involved, in which there's mutual interest. And that's really where we want to go with our actual reporting on it. We could probably find out, if we make a few calls, 15 guys that are interested in the job, which ones South Carolina also interested in, who may interview. Those are the things that we're going to try to dig and find out, and we don't know those yet. Beamer did say that he wanted to move as quickly as possible, but obviously, not at the expense of finding a really, really good candidate. So Wes and I are both working on that, but nothing too substantial right now on that front.
And it's not a bad time to be doing something like this, to have an opening, because it's a dead period as far as recruiting goes. There's no, spring practice hasn't started yet. Certainly they'll want to get somebody in well before spring practice so you can start the acclimation process, let him get to know his current guys, all that stuff. But it is at least a situation where there's not some just crazy rush to go ahead and make a hire.
Right.
Anything else you got, man?
Don't have anything else other than I will go back. I can't properly credit who said, Matthew Threat or Threat. I'm sorry, I mispronounced your name. I'm going to pitch again. $1. GamecockCentral.com. Move to the On3 network. If you haven't joined us yet, please come join us. If you have already, thank you so much. Really appreciate your support. Deal will not be there forever. So you may be sitting around saying, in a couple weeks, I'll sign up when I get a chance. If you want the $1 deal, come on in, jump over your first year of coverage. Insiders Forum, all our content, free Founders Club hat, $1. Wes just dropped the link. Head over there, come join us. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, you will not be disappointed, in my opinion, with what we got going on. Plenty of stuff. Chris is there. I'm there. Colin's there. Mike Yuva's there. The full Gamecock Central staff is on the new platform. So we appreciate the support as always. Appreciate y'all joining us on today's show. Appreciate, as always, Clint Hammond. And for the next couple of weeks, we'll have home field apparel mentions here on the show as well. So we keep you updated on what's going on with them. And we'll see you maybe tomorrow. We'll find out. You never know what could happen. So for Chris, I'm Wes. We'll see you later.